Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Coffee Time with Coach. I am the host with the hostess. No, I can't be hostess, right? The host with the most. This is your boy Coach Ja in the building. I cannot wait to talk to our guest today. My brother is oh my gosh, he's amazing. He's amazing. So first, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you all for celebrating this new venture. I'm streaming through IG Live. So if you see me look to the side, it's just IG Live going. I've been doing IG Live for over a month. And that's what actually prompted me to move the platform to this level. I have a host coming up today, man, that I can't even begin to tell you how honored I am to have him on. It's going to be a really, really sweet, sweet, sweet situation. B City in the building. So I'm going to answer questions from here and from here asking questions. I have a list, but we lay back here. So if you're joining for the first time, we're laid back here. I don't like to have a bunch of I don't like to. I like my guests to be comfortable and be at home and be chill. It's about the chill mode, right? And we can talk about all the things we want to talk about, but I like my guests to be in chill mode. So I don't want to give them way too many questions. I want my guests here it's like it's their show. And a lot of times we go on shows, we get interviewed. I can tell you from experience, and people are just rambling on about all of the things that they want to know, and we never get to talk about the things that we want to know. So when my guest comes on, that is what I'm going to. I'm going to allow him to tell me about. I have some questions. Obviously, we have to do that, right? But we definitely want to keep, our guests flowing the way they want to flow. So welcome to the morning show. And y'all just sit back and relax. If you have any questions for the host, definitely come in. I was asked to do a poem yesterday, and I really didn't have time. Moody Black was my guest yesterday, and it went really, really great. Moody's probably going to be a regular here. I'm telling you that now, because we interact all the time, and when he's not busy, we're still trying to find ways to interact and get some things going. So just so you know, he will be here all the time. Melissa Price is in the building. What is good, Melissa? Ja is in the house. So for my IG people, when I go on the Empowerment Duos morning show, that's my song. Ja's in my house is one of the morning shows. Good morning, Angel, and riddle me this too. We're just chilling out, kicking back for a minute. Everybody, make sure you got your coffee or your tea, whatever you drink. Have your morning refreshment. I start with my coffee first. Oh, I got coffee on. Why you didn't tell me I got coffee on the rim here? I'm working on my little napkin here. Y'all didn't even tell me. See how y'all treat me? So here you get a variety of different things. Will not only be poets, going to be other entertainers on. I've got a list that's filling up pretty good right now. I have some entrepreneurs coming on, people who run their own businesses, and just friends of mine that have from all walks of life who have done some amazing things and have some amazing stories that they want to share and talk about. Everybody has been talking about voting, and I just want people to understand that it's very important that you vote. I want you all to know that I need to find out more about the local voting, and that is something that we all need to find out. What is that? Who do we vote for? Who is out here to actually vote for in the local area? And I think we miss that a lot because we're so busy waiting for the presidential election. That's the big one, and so on and so forth. Well, here's what we need to remember is that by the time the president is already voted in, whoever's going to make laws for us has already been voted in or not voted in. So with that being said, you need to be very, very mindful of who you're voting for and why you're voting for them and who are the people that you should be voting for. I also want to make a mention, my friend Kim Height, our friend, our sister, she's a poet in this area. She was tested positive for COVID-19, and I just want to extend some love to her and all you prayer warriors. Please, if you are a prayer warrior or you just enjoy praying or you don't have anything else to do today, pray for our sister that she is healed very, 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 very quickly, and that we can see her come back really soon. So thank y'all for tuning in. Your guest is here. my brother is here, so I'm really excited to bring him on. Hey, Beverly, how you doing today? My daddy hero. Well, listen, the guest who's coming on now, Lakeisha, welcome, man. My guest who's coming on, my brother, man, I'm going to bring him on right now. He is an amazing human being doing some great things, and I'm happy he can find time in his busy schedule to be here for us. So I'm going to bring him on now. And yeah, y'all give a shout out to my brother, Mr. Obbie West in the building. What's up, bro?
What's up, buddy? Let me see if I can get some more light in here, man.
Okay, okay. If you all don't know who this brother is, I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself. So, Obbie, here's the deal. Here's how I do. This is how I do the show. It's all about you, and we're not gonna have. I don't have a million questions for you because you know how it is. We get interviewed and they have all these questions, and we never get to talk about what we want to talk about.
Okay.
So, first thing I want you to do, tell the people who you are, where you're from, tell them what you do, and let's just set it off.
Right. Who I am. That's always the hardest question I ask for a person themselves, right? Everybody else know who we are, and it's hard for us to describe it. I'm a father first and foremost. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I currently live in Las Vegas. I'm an artist. I'm a spoken word artist by living and in order to live. It does both of those things for me. Again, I'm a father. I have a 17-year-old daughter, be 18 years old soon. I'm an advocate. I do a lot of presentations for sexual assault and harassment awareness. Um, in a nutshell, that's who I am. Yeah.
Fatherhood. Let's talk about that. What is that like? I have I have a daughter too, and I have a daughter on the way. I'm gonna have a baby in January.
Yeah. Saw that.
So talk to me. Challenges of fatherhood, especially a father having a daughter, right? We understand we've had relationships with women, obviously, and we've had siblings or cousins, even our moms and aunties, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does that make you feel having to have certain discussions with your daughter and that kind of thing? What does fatherhood feel like to you?
Man, for me, if I start from the beginning, I was in the military when my daughter was conceived, right? And I left home when I was 17. Right. So every day of my life, I lived under my mother's roof. And then at 17, she signed like a trip slip and signed over her custody to the United States Army. So now I'm the property of the United States Army, and they're giving me a paycheck every 14 days. I ain't even used to having money. So I get paid on the first. I'm broke on the second. You know what I mean? I get paid on the 15th. I'm broke on the 16th. I don't know how to manage money. All I know how to do is go get everything I always wanted. So that was a pattern for me for 6 years. Then my daughter was conceived. Instantly, my priorities changed. All those things that I was spending money on were no longer important because all I could think about is her stomach is dependent on me. Her shelter is dependent on me. All these things are dependent on me. So the first thing fatherhood did for me is it made me accountable. It made me it changed my priorities, and it made me shift what was important. Her survival was dependent on her parents. So we couldn't be negligent in those ways anymore. It wasn't all about us. That's the first thing it did. Later, it made me it really made me renegotiate my relationship with other women, whether it was a romantic relationship, whether it was a cousin, an auntie. It just made me look at those relationships different.
Yeah.
It also made me extremely flexible. As parents, we tend to have this called a problem. We tend to experience this. Our parents, our generation experience with our parents. It's a lot of times relationship they develop with us when we're kids, 18, 50. Right? So what happens is now if you have a parent that moves in with you when you're 50, they still interacting with you the same way they did when you was a kid. Hey, go get me this out the refrigerator. Hey, why you ain't do this? Why you ain't clean your such and such? You're like, wait a minute. So what I learned is our parenting changes when the requirements of the child change. When my daughter's a child and she needs her diaper changed, that's my parental role. When she's now potty trained, I shouldn't be changing diapers no more. That's no longer my parental role. Now, what's her next requirement? Let me adjust to that. So now when she grows out of that and she's 10 years old and now she needs this, I'm no longer changing diapers and wiping her mouth with my thumb. Now my requirements is this. So my parenting needs to adjust as her requirements adjust. So It's made me extremely vigilant. I got to sit back and say, now, how am I needed? Okay, let me invest in that way. Because if you invest in a way that you no longer need, it can be aggravating. Imagine if somebody came up to you right now and said, hey, Ja, make sure you tie your shoes before you leave the house. Like, what you talking to? You know what I'm saying? But you needed that when you was 2.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I make sure that my investment is it fits her requirements. I'm not just investing where I think it needs to be invested because it come off as being belittling or so. So it's extremely flexible in that way. She's reaching adulthood. I'm excited about that. I'm tired of parenting a child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to parent a peer. You know what I mean? I want to be sitting next to another adult and let's talk about life now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm ready for that. I'm ready for school to be over and for her to jump into life so we can get into you know what I mean? So yeah, man, it's as a parent, man, I don't think you ever stop learning. They never stop bringing challenges. So as long as they bring in challenges, you have to be open to learn something new.
Yeah.
So that's me. That's how I look at
Yeah.
parenting.
I definitely first of all salute for all your service that you give to this world, right? Number one. And then when dads have a relationship with their daughters, right? Now me being a father and having a relationship with my daughter, it changes the man. Like you become a man when you have a daughter. Like I don't, I can't speak for anybody else, but when I had to adjust to certain things with my daughter, it forces you to become a different being. You have to man up. That's when man up counts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Learn about checking your emotions at the door. You learn about being open to real questions. You learn about listening without having a response. I learned all these things with my daughter when she turned 16, then 17, 18, and then at 18, she had that bout with depression. And it broke me. Like I didn't know how to deal because I was just coming out of my stretch of depression, if you would, at the same time.
Right.
So I went through a whole different thing. I think when men actually learn to connect to their daughter, it makes them a bigger, better, and stronger man completely. I think it makes us more of not just a father, but it makes us come into manhood in that moment, I think. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, man, I agree. I think when we're raised to be a certain type of man, which we later learn isn't really a man. We're learned to be the traditional man. We're learned to go out and conquer.
Yeah.
In high quantities.
Yeah.
You know, we're learned to demand certain things. We're learned like my father born in the 50s. He think what makes him a man is to be able to sit down and have somebody bring him, hey, bring me that, bring me that, bring me that. You know, that's what. So I think a daughter, I personally think God should make it mandatory that every man has a daughter before he has a son. You know what I mean? I think a daughter gives you that appreciation for women that society didn't give you.
Yeah.
So if you can't get that from having a daughter, then you have an inability to learn that. You know what I mean? So I think it makes you the man that society should have been molding you to be in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because as men who have sons, all we do is we take who we are as men and we start investing those same things into the sons. We just exacerbate our issue into another being. But when we have daughters, like, hold on, let me adjust. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think, I think daughters should be absolutely. If it's a certain position that you can have sex in to conceive a daughter, I think man should do that position first.
You know what? That would be an amazing thing to do, man. That would be an amazing thing to do. I want to ask you another question. Poetry, writing.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? And I'm asking that because with you, it is more than just a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
With you, it's more than it's really a healing thing. And I know people don't really know what you do as with your work, but what does that mean to you? And then if you could kind of tap into what you do with your work. I know it's a whole, like, you can't put that in like a small sentence, right? But if you
Yeah,
can tap into that, what does that mean to you? And then how does that affect the work that you do?
it's a lifeline for me personally.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a level of liberation. I have a very hard time, especially with past experiences. I'm not a very sociable person, right? Anytime I'm surrounded by a mass of people, at some point I absolutely have to escape and get back to myself, right?
Mm,
So the easiest interaction for me is internal. So writing really helps me with that. So it's absolute healing for me. Then I have a real philanthropic type spirit, right? So it actually supports that too, right? I'm not a billionaire. I just can't give monetarily. I have to figure out another way to contribute to society. So for me, there's a lot of people out there who have been their vocal cords. I mean, their vocal boxes have pretty much been hinged shut because of trauma,
yeah.
and they have ways that they feel that. I'll give you an example. If remember back in the days, parents used to co-parent.
Hmm.
I mean, neighbors used to co-parent. Every every neighbor was like a parent. So if your kid was up the street doing something wrong, that neighbor would check your child
That's right.
and then bring your child to you and tell you they checked your child. Now your child finna get rechecked by you from first having to get checked by another person, right? The checking is at an all-time high. You know what I mean? So if I came to you and I said, "Hey, bro, I just seen this kid on the corner beating the crap out of another kid,"
Mm,
it's probably not a good chance you're gonna let your kids hang with that child because you're gonna look at him as a bad influence.
right.
If I come back to you 30 seconds later and say, "Hey, I got the backstory. The kid that was being violent, he's been a victim of bullying for like the last 3 years. School district did nothing about it. Law enforcement did nothing about it. What I just saw, that was him the first time that he decided to stand up to his bully.
Mm,
Now all of a sudden, you probably gonna be willing to support a child that 30 seconds ago you was ostracizing
wow. Yeah.
because you have an understanding of the catalyst that drove his actions. In the absence of that understanding, it's callousness. But when you understand why he acted that way, now you're rooting for him.
Yeah.
So people in trauma who voice box has been shut down, they don't have the ability to explain why they're acting that way. They're just detached. They're not trusting people who love them. They have all these unfavorable traits in society. Like, why are you acting that way? And they just don't have a voice box to explain.
Mm,
That's what poetry has allowed me to do. Be
wow.
that voice box for those individuals that lost the ability to explain. So now, because nobody understands them, nobody supports them. So
Mm,
let me give you an understanding of why they're acting like that, and then maybe you can be a little more supportive of them. So not only is it healing for me, but it's absolutely it's fulfilling for me when I can use it and somebody can say, man, that's exactly what I've been trying to say. Now instead of me trying to say it, I'm just gonna share this poem with the other person.
right. Right.
Yeah, so that's what it's all about for me,
Right.
man. It's absolute liberation externally and internally.
That's magic. That's magic. That's magic. Um. So let's talk about what you want to talk about. Let's talk about projects. Share your merch. Tell people what you got going on. What's coming up. Let's talk about some fun stuff. Let's just talk about
All
you.
right. Um Project. This might be the toughest part of the interview, bro.
So
Project.
tell us about stuff that's already available for people to purchase.
Mhm.
Tell us about all of your stuff, everything that you. Now we never remember everything. So
Right, right, right. Yeah. The website, remember though, I just get a website and the website knows. So the website is www.obbiewest.com. Two B's,
I'm going
OBBIEWEST.
to create a new one.
And pretty much most of my merchandise is it's like self-help type merchandise. Progress shirts and iron sharpens iron shirts. It's all everything is a message. Is a
Is,
message that
is it obiwest.com? Is that what you
yeah,
said?
OBLBWest.com.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, most of the merchandise is our statement. Well, when I say statement pieces, I don't mean statement pieces like they're loud and got diamonds on them. I mean statement pieces as that piece has a statement on it that represents something the person wants to manifest. Like it may say progress. People that like helping people, there's shirts that say iron sharpens iron. So things of that nature. My girl too gangster for patriarchy, just stuff that supports a healthy mentality and a healthy way of being. As far as upcoming merchandise, I don't want to call it merchandise, but I'm starting this, what I want to call a movement or a community. And it's called F What the World Says. EFF What the World Says. So it's pretty much giving people permission to live according to their own perspective.
Right.
Not feel like you naturally have to conform with what's going on around you, especially if everything going around you is toxic. And as people, we have a natural tendency to try to fit in out of a fear of being isolated.
Yeah.
So we'll fit in with whatever's around us. And if that's toxic, now we feel a need to become toxic. So F What the World Says is something that pretty much gives you the permission to live according to your own perspective. And there will be merchandise tied to the movement. So it's not a merchandise, it's a movement with merchandise tied to it. And that'll be real soon. I have a project that I started a while ago called Tides. It's take the initiative to help, encourage, and save, pretty much tides.
Okay.
So the traditional way of paying tithes is you give a certain percentage to a church. Nowadays, you go to a restaurant and the waitress won't like 15%. You're like, God only asked for 10. You want God want 10, you want 15? Wait a minute, right? So for me, the way I approach tides is a little bit different. I'm not really sold into going into a church and putting money into a bin. So I may go to a grocery store and pay for the person's groceries in front of me, or go to a gas station and say, I got mine and whatever the person behind me got on their pump. Something like that. That's what ties look like for me. So what I wanted to do, what I was doing with that is using it as a way to bring awareness to the displaced.
Okay.
A lot of times we see people who are homeless and they're panhandling, and instantly we develop an impression of who that person is. So I was going over to homeless shelters and interviewing people who are in there. And I was talking to one guy. This guy's a professor at a college. He had a stroke. When he had a stroke, he lost his ability to do things. So he couldn't work. And he couldn't take care of himself. So he had to move in with his son. His son said, I'm not having it. Son took him to the homeless shelter. So this guy is in the homeless shelter. He went straight from being a professor at a college in his own place to being in the homeless shelter. Now, if we saw that guy standing outside on the corner without his backstory, we're thinking, you just didn't abide by the laws of life. You decided to get drunk and get, you know what I mean? But what I've learned is a lot of those people, they didn't have problems with substance abuse before being homeless. They developed that problem after being homeless as a coping mechanism.
Absolutely.
So what we tend to do is we all have coping mechanisms. We have jobs, and our job has a certain amount of stress. Depending on the level of stress, we determine our coping mechanism. If it's a little stress, we might go home and have some wine. If it's a lot of stress, we might go home and take a shot. Same thing with them, but they standing on the corner and people driving by throwing human feces on them. So wine ain't going to be enough of a coping mechanism to deal with that stress. So their coping mechanism is a little bit more. So we have coping mechanisms too. We judge them as if we don't. Right?
Yeah.
So that level of awareness is what I was trying to bring to people who are displaced, so that, again, if we have a better understanding, we have the ability to be a little more compassionate. So that's called Tides. So my goal is to reinvigorate the Tides project. So those are my two big focuses.
That's awesome, man. That's as a youth, when I was young, I used to talk to a lot of the homeless and displaced people in New York City. And as a teenager, kids make fun, and they used to laugh because it's a liquor store, and they call the liquor store Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's where they get out there, and some of them can sing, some of them can rap, some of them dance, and they just be at the liquor store chilling. And they call it Hollywood. I used to walk past Hollywood, and I used to have conversation with them. It was to the point where some of the people who were out there used to offer to buy me something to drink. Now I'm like, man, you living, you know what I'm saying? No, let me buy you something. And it might be a 50-cent soda. At that one point in time, it was sodas like 20 cents a can. It was 20-cent sodas, right? I'm telling you age now. And But it's just when you hear their stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, my dad was even on the streets at one point in time. When they tell a story, it gives you a different look on humanity,
Mm-hmm.
right? You no longer look at people the same after someone tells you, "Hey, I used to be, I was a stockbroker. Hey, I used to run security. I used to run construction. That was my thing, and then now I'm here." There's a woman in Charlotte who was I think she was a very important, like a congresswoman or something. When I saw her, she was on the streets. She was homeless on the streets. And she recently I think she got hit by a car. I think she survived. I think she was really banged up. But how do you will hear what happened that you get there and people just
Right.
walk past you like, so man,
Absolutely.
just to do that is honorable, man. I appreciate it. Like I said, I knew asking you to come on our show, there was so much that you had to offer and people don't know. And that's why I try to give you room to talk about all your things. I have a question for you that someone asked on IG Live. It says,
Yeah.
how do you deal with the old you when the old you makes more money than the new you? That's the question.
For me, I think that's well, it's kind of a lot to that question
It is.
in order for me to address. Now, for me,
Mhm.
the old me had an extreme hustle, but it wasn't a happy ending to that type of hustle. So if I have to if I can gain peace of mind and do away with some of the monetary benefit, I'd rather have the peace of mind.
Right,
So
right.
if the new me is making less money, but is more but has more peace of mind, that's a
Mhm.
fair trade-off for me. So I
God,
think it's all about a moral posture. Is
yeah,
how is the money coming about? And why is it that the new you is making less? If the new you is making less because the new you is lazier, then some work needs to be done. But if the new you is making less because the new you said, I'm gonna do it the right way, and the right way it just don't come as fast as the wrong way, then the peace of mind associated with that makes me okay.
yeah,
I
yeah.
hope that addresses the question.
Yeah, I think it was a good answer. Beverly says, if you had to speak on the homeless, how would you speak to them through spoken? How would you speak to them through spoken word? If you had
How
to speak to the homeless, how would you speak to them through spoken word?
two that's a two-part answer. One is my initial approach with the homeless is a whole lot of listening.
Yeah.
That's what they missing.
Yep.
They're always talked to, they never get a chance to be heard. But now if I had to respond to them or address them through spoken word, how would I do it? I think I would do it by offering a level of understanding, something to invest in them that we still acknowledge that they're human.
Right.
So I think I would write a poem that now humanizes them again versus villainizing them.
That's it. That's
So
the.
I would take the criminal aspect away and say, hey, you human with the same problems I have, yours are just in a different space, right? Because most of us are one paycheck away from being they neighbors. You understand? So I
Yeah.
think I would use spoken word to just invest in them that they are a person.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an awesome answer. Um, I want to talk. Well, I'll say this first. So I remember watching Verses and Flow. I fell
Yeah.
in love with Verses and Flow. I want to say that I did hear your name prior to that, but I know definitely when I saw you on Verses and Flow, and this is what, maybe 7 years ago?
Man, oh yeah, that was 2000. Yeah, you dead on like 7 years ago.
I saw Verses and Flow, and I was like, yo, this dude is amazing. If I'm not mistaken, I think, I'm trying to remember what you had. I think you had on suspenders that day. I don't think
Think
it was a
so.
jacket. I think you
No,
had
it
suspenders.
wasn't a jacket. It was suspenders, like some brown pants or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I was glued to the TV. I was trying to get my phone out to record it and couldn't record it. I kept fumbling with the phone. I was stuck. I can't remember the poem you did, but I remember then. And I was like, yo, because we were just starting our poetry venture at that time, my brother and I.
Yeah.
Starting our open mic stuff then. And the moment I saw open to get you here, CIAA, and I brought you here, man, I was, so people don't get, everybody has their own way to get starstruck, if you would, right? I've met a lot of people, bro. I've been backstage with some of the hip hop greats. And when I met you, man, I was excited and I was so hurt that they messed up my venue. You remember that?
I remember that. Yeah, we they last minute they rescheduled you for something else. You
No,
had people that show up and then left.
I'm gonna tell you what they did. I'm gonna remind you. The guy who had the space, so they rented the space for this event for CIAA. Well, he didn't pay the money for the generator for the next day, or he missed the payment and they took the generator out. Now, instead of him telling me that the generator wasn't there, he waited till about an hour and a half before the show was supposed to begin to tell me there's no generator. Now, mind you, I didn't even get. I had to buy clothes to wear to the show. My clothes that I wore to the show was in the trunk of my car when I got down there. I changed in the back before y'all came out.
Right.
And he wanted me to put speakers on top of that. Remember the big stage that we first was in front of?
Right.
He put speakers on the table and perform that way. Right then and there, I was like, I got to cancel the show. I was gonna pay y'all, and y'all can just do whatever y'all gonna do. Show was canceled. And then we found that they had other equipment in the other spot. I say 75% of the people that was coming for that show that paid for it showed up right before you came. I was hurt. And the horrible part about that was so many people did not get to see you and Desan. I had Desan on the bill too.
Yeah, we was in that little room. We just stood in there and kind of did our thing.
I still have a DVD with that, with some of the performance from then. Tell me what that experience was like at Versus and Flow.
Versus and Flow was an interesting dynamic, man, because we always had these things that we look at as our pinnacle. And I remember, I'm not a TV person, right? Like that was like 4-year time frame where I didn't own a television. And there was a friend of mine. She said, "Hey, it's this show called Versus and Flow. It's a poetry show. You should come over and watch it." I said, "All right, I'll come through." So I remember going over her house one day and sitting on the floor, with my back up against her couch, and it came on. And these poets are walking out on this huge stage, and I was like, "Whoa!" And I said, "I'm gonna do that." And she said, "You should." I auditioned, right? I sent in an audition tape, and maybe 4 months later, I'm at work. I get a phone call on my cell phone. "This is such and such from Versus and Flow. We want to know if you were interested in what?" So in that my mind, that's it. Yeah. I done made it. I hit the pinnacle. So I'm from LA, but at the time I was living in Oklahoma. So they said, "We got to fly you back to Hollywood for about a week to go do this thing." Wow. So I fly back. I go do the episode, and instantly it wasn't enough. It was one of those things where it felt like the pinnacle before I arrived, but the second I was done, it just created a different level of eagerness for what's next. Wow. So instantly it wasn't enough. So it was like, you ever see people, like I was looking at that Facebook dude, the dude who started Facebook. And I'm thinking to myself, he done started this platform. He works hard to keep this platform running. He's a multi-billionaire. What's his motivation at this point? I'll sell the hell out this platform. Just be straight. Somebody else deal with these headaches. But it's kind of like what seems like our goal becomes extremely insufficient once we reach it. And as long as you're ambitious, it's going to be a next high, next high, next high, next high. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. $1 million is a lot of money until you get $1 million. Then you like, what that 10 mil feel like? You know what I mean? Yeah. So instantly Versus and Flow wasn't enough. It was like, okay, what's next? So I never even watched the episode. Really? Yeah. When the episode aired, I was in DC at a show. Love the Poet had a show in DC. I was in DC standing on a stage doing poetry when the show aired. I never saw it. Wow. So it instantly became not enough. So it was very inspiring to do it, show what the possibilities are, to see them lines of people standing outside this building all the way up the street to listen to poets. Like, you really finna come here and sit down and listen to what I think? It's crazy. So it was inspiring in that way, but it instantly wasn't enough.
Wasn't enough. Wow. There are so many poets who would love to be in that position. I watched the Quincy Jones documentary, and Quincy Jones says ego is a bunch of misplaced misplaced. Gosh, I forgot the wording he used. But basically, he said what you should do is set the bar so high that you never reach those goals, you have no reason to have an ego at that point. And I've thought about that. Like, man, set the bar up there so you always have something to reach for. And then there was someone else, it was a musician, I can't remember it was, and they asked him what was his greatest song that he ever wrote. I want to say that might have been, it wasn't Stevie Wonder. It was somebody, but it was somebody up there, right? And he said, I didn't write it yet.
Wow.
I was like, wow. I mean, so what's your greatest poem? You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
That, like, haven't written it yet.
Yeah.
I had studied spoken word and slam poetry for the past 7 years. 6 years. I started in 2016 as a slam coach with respect to Mike Slam. Slam poetry, what I will give it, I met a lot of people through it, but slam poetry actually helped increase my understanding of writing performance poetry versus page poetry. And I think a lot of people miss that. And I think page poets actually are comparing themselves to performance poets. You have a opinion on that? Page poetry versus performance poetry?
I think they're different. I absolutely think they're different. I honestly think one is more honest. I think slam is a culture that is very easy to get caught up in what's going to help me win.
Yeah.
Not what's going to help me get free. What's going to help me win. So I think what that does, or the ill effects of that sometimes, is we hear a person who's winning repetitively, like a Rudy Francisco, Ed Mabry. We hear these people and we say, okay, that's the formula to win. So now we all sound like an Ed Mabry, all sound like a Rudy Francisco, because that seems like what the formula. So I think it kind of robs people of their individuality.
Yeah.
They want to win, where page poetry, you're not worried about any of that. You're just pretty much trying to get your feet off the ground. You're just trying to get free, right? And that doesn't ever even have to be shared. I can write that and keep it to myself as long as it's freeing. So I think it's absolute honesty in that. Now, the benefits, I think, of slam poetry is it forces you to elevate your pen. How can I be more descriptive? How can I be more vivid? How can I now not only make the content first, but now add an aspect of creative writing? So I think it really, really sharpens you. It's like playing pickup ball versus playing in front of scouts. You're going to try harder in one.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think there's some ups and downs. I just think there has to be an absolute balance whenever you are a slam, because you can get caught up in that life to where I look at poetry right now with an appreciation. If you're on the stage and you're doing a poem, I'm first appreciating the artwork, then I'm listening to hear what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But if I'm a slam poet and you're another slam poet, now I'm listening to see where your weaknesses are. I'm listening to see where I'm better than you. So now I missed your whole message.
Yeah.
I'm listening for a different reason. So even how we listen changes depending on how we write.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had 2 questions for you. Well, 2 more. This one is always a fun one. Things that you dislike about love.
Bro. if I just embraced this thing like 8 months ago. Prior to that, I had a very toxic opinion about love, right? First of all, the main ingredient of love is vulnerability. If you look up the word vulnerability in a dictionary, it literally says to make yourself open to be hurt or destroyed. Wow. That's the definition of vulnerability, and that's the main ingredient required. So I got to make myself available to be hurt or destroyed in order for me to practice liking you. I'm cool, right? And then another thing with me is the definition of love in the dictionary says a strong feeling. Hate is a strong feeling too. So the dictionary doesn't even have the ability to properly define it. So, I mean, I'm going to go on a tangent. So love is pretty much defined by our experience, right? So I grew up in an abusive household where I saw my father beat my mother.
Wow.
While he's helping up this abused woman, he's saying, I love you. And she's saying, I love you too. Wow. So as a child, easily that can become my definition of love. So when I go find a woman, I might crack her cranium to show her how much I care, right? And she says, well, how can you do this if you love me? And I'm thinking, I'm doing this because I love you.
Wow. Yeah.
So a lot of times what we fail to do is we fail to ask the other person what their definition of love is. We tend to think it's the same as ours. And when the actions don't match up, now we're confused.
Yeah.
The definition of love isn't even set. It's based on our experiences. Find me a person that's been in love and never been hurt. You can't find them. So why I want to be a part of that?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking when I tell somebody I love you, I ain't gonna even say the word love. I'm gonna make up a word because love, it has an aura surrounding it that means it has to include pain. So I'm gonna say I west you, I Obbie you, something like that. Something that has a more healthier connotation, because love has a real, it's like you gotta make yourself available for this level of hurt in order for you to receive this level of luxury, right? And that trade-off always seems to go the other way. So I had a very toxic impression of love. So what I don't like about love, or what I don't know if I won't say what I don't like, is what I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
As it pertains to love. Caring can be stressful. You know what I mean? You got people in prison right now for murder. They say, why'd you kill him? Because I loved him. Wait a minute. That's why you killed him? People who just like,
right.
And don't love, they don't do that. They just walk away. You know what? You leave me, you drive me crazy. I'm out of here. But people who love, it's like the more you love, when there's an infraction, the more you try to do to avenge that infraction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a dangerous thing, man. I think it should be illegal in a few states. To keep a hood. Yeah.
Yeah, man. That love thing. I like to ask men that, because a lot of women have this idea of what men see in love, or see what love is. And you broke it down real quick and right from the jump. Depending on what you have witnessed as love. My dad used to say all the time, love doesn't hurt. It's the crazy things we do out of love that hurts. And
Right.
you actually said the same exact thing what you said. So I always challenge that, because my pop said that, and I always want to see how other men view that in their description of that. And that is exactly it.
Yeah. And if I can add to that, I agree with that statement. I think we're also taught how to respond to certain things, right? Like, I'm from the hood. You from the hood. If you somewhere and you hear boom, you're gonna respond a certain way.
You're gonna respond.
Somebody who's not from that environment, when they hear boom, they're like, what's that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So our experience tells us how to respond to things.
Yeah.
So our experience tells us how to respond to love.
Yeah.
So these crazy behaviors that are attached to love is how we've been taught to respond.
Mm-hmm.
In the absence of other ways, we resort to what we know.
Yeah.
Right. So, and everybody don't abide by Corinthians, right? Corinthians says love is this, love is this, love is not jealous. Automatically right there, 100% of the people disqualified. Right? If love ain't jealous, who loving? Ain't nobody loving. Everybody jealous. Why you looking at him? Why you looking at her? You understand? So that thing complicated, man.
Yeah,
it's
man.
Complicated. It's easier to draw it than it is to do it, right? You just do this with the little heart, but to do it
works.
That's
oh man. Circle of trust. 5 people that, regardless to what your situation is, good or bad, 5 people that you could name right now that they could be in my circle of trust. If you have 5.
My daughter. Bro.
That's a heavy question.
My mother. I got a guy I grew up with named Johnny. Probably done, bro.
Yeah, yeah. It's a heavy question, and I like to ask it because it is something that we need to acknowledge and accept. And then those people who we put in that circle need to always know that. And it builds, I think it builds a stronger bond, and they understand their worth in your life. So I think it's a really good question. I try to ask that all the time because, again, like I said, I think it's real. That's important. That's important. And it's like, it makes you think about, okay, well, what if I don't have access to those 3, right? Who's next in line, or is it even possible to have anybody else next in line?
Right.
That's a whole nother story, right?
Right.
Another thing.
That's crazy. Yeah, most people, you just trusting them to be who they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that can be
that in
good or
itself.
bad. That can be good or bad. Yeah, I trust you to. You just got out. You just did a stint for stealing, so I trust you to take something out of my house. So as a result, you know what I mean. I'm just trusting you to be who you are. So as a result, you got to stay in the car. You know. What I mean?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Your go-to music, no matter what your mood is. I tell you what, your ups and downs, when you're all the way up and when you're all the way down, what is your go-to music or your go-to songs that you use?
Man, I'm an age baby, so I'm a hip hop head.
Yeah.
So yeah, so my go-to music when I'm up is hip hop. When I'm down, I would say as well, hip hop as well. When I want to dictate my mood, when I want to tell myself how to feel, jazz.
Jazz, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me two of your favorite jazz musicians.
Bro,
I know that's tough. That's
yeah,
tough.
tough because a lot of times it's just like a shuffle type thing, and I don't even know who I'm listening to. But my first introduction there was Norman Brown,
Norman Brown.
and there was this group called the Fat Cat Players, I think it was a jazz group. I think that's the name.
It
Fat
sounds familiar, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
but those were my first introduction, so I would have to use them. But for the most part, with me, I don't even know who I'd be listening to. You know, with Spotify and all these little platforms, you can just type in a genre and let it roll. Yeah.
I listen to, I write a lot listening to jazz music, and the funny thing about it is, I listen to Solia, Miles Davis, and I listen to Coltrane. He did Naima, and I listen to those two to actually whenever when I'm when I'm home and I'm like, okay, let me see the space I'm in. I listen to those two and I go. Or I watch John Coltrane's documentary on Netflix and I go. In fact, I did a poem for the bombing in Birmingham. The 4 little girls that killed in the church. Started that poem months ago and never got back to it. And in watching the documentary, I found it. And I got the body of it. And I'm still doing some editing, but I got the body of it. And I find it amazing that when I listen to jazz, I can be on a roller coaster. I can be happy, sad, melancholy. I can be flatline. I can be good money with that. And I think that is the beauty in that. But then I listened to what Miles Davis said, don't call my music jazz. Don't box me into that.
Yeah.
And that is a heavy statement, right? Because think about what he's trying to say with that. Don't box me into that. Don't make my music a one thing.
Right.
And you can't with jazz because jazz
is yeah. And maybe that's what jazz means. Maybe the word means etc. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe that's what it means. But yeah, you're right. You're right.
When you listen to a Charlie Parker with that double time, that double time was a beast.
Right.
I mean, it's so sad that his life ended at a short second, but that double time, if you don't know anything about jazz and you listen to it, imagine being there in person.
Right.
Imagine that. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So I listened to jazz when I was young. I loved opera. But my mom's had the 8-track, so it was the Stylish, it's the Shy Lights, 4 Tops, all of those. And you hit the little program, to switch the songs, you hit the program button. Right. So I did all of that and loved it, man. Loved it.
Telling your age.
Yeah, I'm telling my age, man. I'm telling you. I think let me ask you, so you travel a lot, I know, because you always perform it. When you're driving, and you got to drive over an hour and a half, 2 hours, what's your favorite music to pop in?
Man, that's a good question. It's funny you asked that. That's the time where I probably listen to music the least.
Oh wow.
Though I've never really been a fan of long drives. It's the most mind-opening thing to me ever. So it's a conflict because I don't like driving, but there's great benefits for me. So I normally use long drives for mind's time. You know what I mean? Music is kind of like, I really don't want to listen to myself. I'm gonna listen to y'all talk.
Wow.
But when I don't want to listen to y'all talk, and now I need to listen to myself, normally I do that on long drives.
Wow.
So long drives is normally silent for me. That's normally where I listen to me.
I would have never thought that. I don't know if I've done it. I don't like long drives, so I need something to keep me entertained.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be on the phone with somebody. I'm gonna be playing, and I usually start off with Biggie to get me hyped. Like, oh, I got this drive ahead of me because I need to get up because I know I'm coming down.
Right. Yeah.
We got 10 minutes left. I want to give you time to talk about anything you want to talk about. Share anything you want to share with the people, with the folks that's tuning in. Thank y'all for tuning in. It's an amazing show this morning. But I want to give you time to share because again, we get in these interviews and people don't shut up and let us say what we want to say. And I want to give you time to say or share anything you want to share with the folks that's listening. And yeah, so we can learn more about you.
Bro, I think we covered a lot. I
We
think
did.
if I had to address something that we didn't directly address, I would. One of my favorite sayings is every day we live is one day less that we have left.
Mm.
And there's a piece of paper somewhere. I don't know where it is, and it says job. And it says failure, 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 success.
Mm.
And in order for Ja to reach that success, he has to go through these failures.
Yeah.
So when he's scared to fail and he stops because he's afraid to fail, there's no way he's ever going to reach. You got to check these failures off first.
Wow.
And right now, with the evolution of social media, we're all afraid to fail because it's publicized.
Yeah.
So we try to make ourselves appear as successful and progressive as possible because there are other eyes that are looking. But in doing that, we're stopping ourselves from checking off those failures that are necessary in order for us to get to that
Wow.
success. So I would say we need to reel ourselves in, figure out how to use social media versus allowing it to use us
Mm.
to the point to where it's not stifling us or hindering our progress. We 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 can't be so quick to mold ourselves in order to fit the matrix. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I heard somebody say the new currency is likes. People don't even want money no more. They just want likes. So
Wow.
everything they do is for likes. And you got more people working towards being successful in that platform than they are in being successful in real life. Right. So if one day Instagram and Facebook just shuts down and nobody can log on, I guarantee you the suicide rate is going to go up.
That's true, bro.
Because people's self-worth is behind that username and password. So with
Wow.
the evolution of social media, I would just say really find some time to still tap into who you are organically and try to differentiate who you really are organically versus who you have become based on what society expects from you. I think
Wow.
that's the only way that we're going to be successful mentally as well as in any other way. So
Yeah.
that would be my that's the first thing that came to mind when
Gotcha.
you said something. Yeah.
Bro,
Hope
that's
that makes sense. Hope I just wasn't rambling.
yeah, that was scripture. You know what I'm saying? That was scripture. That was the Holy Grail right there. That's the Holy Grail. I have one more question for you, and I think this is a good question. Name 3 things that you would like to be known for, your legacy. 3 things that you would like to see people to say, you know what? Boom, boom, boom.
I remember I was listening to an Ice Cube interview, and they said, "You're making all these movies now. What you want to be known for when you die?" He said, "I want to be known for my rhymes." Right? So no matter how many movies he make, he still want to be known for what he does. So one, I want to be known as being someone who was passionate about the art, about poetry. One, I want to be known as a person who had a good heart, who really was passionate about giving, regardless to who was looking, right? Even if it was anonymous, just helping. And I want to be known as my daughter's father, as a person who really contributed
Yeah,
to the quality of life of my daughter.
yeah,
Yeah, those are the 3 things right
yeah.
there.
Man, there's so much. There's so many gems you dropped in this moment, And I mean, they on my live, and I'm gonna get back to y'all on live in a minute. I just been locked in, right? I had Moody Black on. I think you know Moody Black.
Mm-hmm.
I had him on yesterday. It was, like I said, we just started this portion of it, and I like to listen to what real men have to say. And there's a lot of people that are on both all platforms here that are listening, and the inspiration. Somebody just say, you know, you are an inspiration too, Obbie. Like, you know, to hear people say that, I just want to support those comments, because there's a lot of magic in what you've said. And I hope that people go back and watch the feed later on, and those who didn't catch it get to go back on it and follow through and learn a lot from what you did, because there was so much that you talked about and spread across the board. And I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for getting up early in the morning, number one.
Hey, no sweat, bro.
It's early over there.
Yeah, it's going on 8 o'clock. It's all good though.
Yeah. So first of all, I want y'all to know, like, since I met Obbie, anytime he's in this area, he hit me up, be like, yo, John, you got something going on, I'm coming through. In fact, I meant to bring my stool that you left me. I kept my stool with me everywhere I go now. Anytime I'm on the show, if I'm hosting, anything I'm doing, my stool is right there with me.
Yeah.
Even if I'm just the sound man, I bring my stool. I meant to put it right here, but I didn't bring it downstairs. But just the genuine person that you've been from day one, man. I appreciate that so much. Moody Black just chimed in. Moody, what's up, bro? Just the genuine spirit you have been, and thank you for all the service you give to this world, to this community. When people do service for any individual, they're doing a service for the world. And that's one of the things that people need to understand. Like, if I'm doing a service and I'm helping somebody, I'm helping the world, because it creates a balance in the entire world. That energy is universal. It's not a community thing. It's a one community thing. And I appreciate everything that you do, man. And man, I'm just happy you was able to make it. And I'm happy I got you in. So like I said, I know your schedule just be.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity, bro. Anytime.
Indeed. So anybody have any last questions? We got about 3 minutes left and we signing off out of here. And after we done, Obbie, I'm gonna have you hold on, if you could, in the box for a minute. Yeah. After this ends. So if anybody have any questions, ask them now, because we're getting ready to get up out of here. It's just been wonderful. My guest today, Mr. Obbie West. Bro, I still remember, like I said, I know I said this already, but I still remember when I first saw you on TV, man. And I was a fan then.
I appreciate that,
just
man.
to know, and speaking about when we talk about slam poets and being locked into that field of slam poetry, to know that you could have been a slam poet and just stayed right there. Right? You could have been slam poet and that's it, but you saw bigger in your craft. That says a lot about the heart. And that is one of the things that I really appreciate. And like I said, so meeting you on that level was just magnificent. And then she has a book. My mom had, so just to be keeping 100, my mom has the book and I didn't get a book. So I need to go ahead and cash app you so I can get my book.
Just shoot me an address, man. We get it shipped up.
Look, when I go to my mom's house, it's Wits and I's books on the table, and your book is right there with it.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, your book is right there.
I gotta get with Wits too, because I be seeing both of y'all live at the same time. And
yeah.
Him and I were supposed to connect, and something came up and I couldn't do it. I really need to get with him.
We do a show with we do the open mic every Tuesday and every Thursday. And then once we do that, we Wit stays on 3 hours, bro. He go on open mic for 3 hours. I'm not doing it. But he does it for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And, but you know, you always a conversation. You're always a conversation piece. Always a conversation for us, man, because the good energy is always great. So
likewise, I appreciate that, brother.
So listen, IG just signed off. We got less than a minute left. Thank y'all for tuning in. My man, Mr. Obbie West. Go to his website, purchase his merchandise, support him. I'm sure he is all over YouTube. Find him on YouTube. Lock into my brother. Follow him on IG. Follow him. Get him $1 million views, so you can get $1 million per view. Yeah. We'll be good. I'm gonna sign off. Like I always tell y'all, man, be good to yourself. Find out how to love yourself, so you can teach people how to love you. Be a reflection of what you should be. So today, you should you should challenge yourself to be better today than you was yesterday. Y'all be in love. Y'all be in peace. And we will talk to y'all soon. Peace.
Appreciate you.